Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Will Schrader. I am the Wealth Management Associate and Certified College Funding Specialist here at Prayfire, and I am going to be your guide through the Prayfire College Program. So first, thank you for being here. So happy you're with us. But what we are intending to do with this program is help you navigate through the vast world that is college planning. There is so much gray area, misunderstanding, unknowns, moving parts for families, for parents, for students, and it can just be overwhelming at times. I remember when I was in high school, trying to get organized, trying to figure out where to start. It was just overwhelming and not a very enjoyable experience. So we want to help you through that process, give you the right information, give you some helpful tips. We're here to answer questions. We just want to give you the best college planning experience possible. So without further ado, we are going to introduce today's topic, which is understanding what you can afford. I think this is a great place to get started because you need to know how much it's going to cost you for wherever you want to go. Here's our disclosures. All right. So what is college pre-approval? Well, it's a process where students and their families are going to receive an estimate on what the total cost of college looks like for them. And it's going to include things like tuition, room and board, books and supplies. Those are the three big ones. But there are others, like travel expenses, for example. If you have a student who is going to school out of state, it's far away, their travel expenses might be significant. Gas money, plane tickets, those things. We can add those, include those in your total cost. We can also add miscellaneous spending. Maybe when your student is in the dorm as a freshman, they're probably not going to be working, getting adjusted to the college life. You might give them some sort of an allowance to, go to the grocery store, get some snacks for their dorm if they're sick of eating the, cafeteria food at the college. Or maybe they want some money to have a night out with their friends, whatever it is. We can include that in there. And then we're going to take out any financial aid and scholarships that you're going to be eligible for to arrive at your total cost. Now, once we have this total cost, we're going to look at your personal financial situation. So parents, we're going to look at your assets. We're going to look at your income. We're going to see if you have anything set aside specifically for college, like 529 plans, or any extra savings that hey, this is specifically for college. So we're going to take all that. And then students, yes, we're going to look at your income if you have any. Yes, we're going to look at your assets if you have any. But our main focus with you is going to be things like GPA, test scores, so SAT, ACT scores, whatever major you want to pursue, those types of things. And once we gather all that information, we're going to put it into this software. This is our college planning software, and we're going to walk through it with you. I'll give you an example here. This is an imaginary family. They're sending their kid to the University of Iowa. Go Hawks. But in their case, the total cost is going to be $120,000. Holy smokes. And you can see next to net cost on the left, there's a drop-down arrow. I can't click on it because it's a screenshot. But if we were on the actual site, I could click on it, drop down, and that's where you're going to see the tuition, the room and board, books and supplies, all that stuff. So that's how we arrive at the $120,000, okay? Move one down, you've got my college budget amount. This is where we're going to put in any 529 plans, any extra savings you have set aside specifically for college, any known scholarships or aid you're going to receive. And it's going to get broken up across 4 years to get the total, which in this case, $79,000. Then once you subtract your college budget amount from your net cost, you're going to arrive at your first funding gap. So in this case, they still owe $41,000 total after their college budget. Where's the next place they're going to look? Student loans. There's another drop down. Here you can go federal, you can go unsubsidized, subsidized, private, whatever it is. But in this case, they maxed out their federal unsubsidized student loans. So first year limit, $5,500, second year limit, $6,500, third and fourth year limit, $7,500 each, for a total of $27,000. And once they get that done, they are still left with $14,679 to pay. And this funding gap is our focal point. This is what we need to figure out. We need to understand how we're going to pay this, where the money is going to come from, and that's what we want to help you with. But before we move on, I want to stay on this page. And for the student, this is where major and test scores and GPA all come into play, because you can see on the right there, top right, under $3,272 per month, the estimated monthly take-home pay for a business management major. That's just an estimate, but it's a good idea of what your student will be making out of college if they do have to take out student loans. They can kind of compare their payment to what they're making. Does it make sense? And then on the left, there's that, I guess I got to go this way. This way, you can see there's an awards tab there, and with your GPA and test scores and all that stuff in the school, we can start looking for scholarships for your student. And I will go on my rant on scholarships here in a little bit. So just a warning there, but we can get started on the scholarship process too. So once you go through that process, it might bring you back to reality a little bit. If you're looking at a Harvard or a Yale or an elite, private college, you might be thinking, holy smokes, because those schools are so expensive. The cost of college continues to rise, and in some cases, it's just crazy. And so if that is your case, it's a good time to sit down with your student and set realistic expectations. Tell them, I know you want to go to Harvard, but without substantial aid, it's not in the cards. I don't know if we can afford it. Let's look to other options. Now, there are thousands of schools across the country, and many of them have wonderful programs for whatever major you can imagine. There's a school out there for you. But it is important to note that most of these Ivy Leagues, most of these elite colleges are not going to offer any merit-based aid based on grades, based on test scores, because there are so many applicants. The competition is so high that these schools are not worried about filling their seats, okay? They're not going to pay for your kid to go there because they don't need to pay for your kid to go there. So the only chance you're going to get aid is need-based aid, and that's going to depend on your financial situation. Now, if you look to other schools, like a state school or a local college or whatever, they might offer attractive merit-based aid packages to try and get your student to go there, because they're competing with all these other schools. They got to fill their seats. They want your student. They're going to pay for them. And so that is a good thing to note if you are dead set on an elite or an Ivy League. So how do we pay for that funding gap? Now, I have all these payment methods here, but some of them, are included in the college budget amount, and then student loans are their own thing, but I'm going to talk about them anyways. So if you are unfamiliar with 529s, I'm going to have a whole separate piece on this later, but they are accounts designed specifically for educational expenses. You will contribute money on behalf of your student or your child. The money is going to get invested. It will grow tax deferred, just like it does in a retirement account. And then when it comes time to use that money for college or for whatever, as long as it's a qualified educational expense, it will come out tax-free. Another cool thing here is Some states, Iowa included, offers a state tax deduction for 529 contributions. So if you're looking for an extra way to maybe minimize taxes, 529s could be a good option. So you get your tax deduction when you contribute. It's going to go tax deferred, come out tax free if it's used for a qualified educational expense. Boom, boom, boom. That's a good deal. I also have other savings on here again. If you have, a separate savings account or whatever set aside for college, let's use it. Maybe you've got other savings that you could use. Maybe you didn't set that aside specifically for college, but you can use it to fill that funding gap. That's always an option. I also have monthly cash flow on here. And that's because if your kid is away at school, they're not going to be raiding your fridge. They're not going to be taking hour-long showers. They're not going to be leaving the lights on all day, all night. So a couple of your monthly expenses, your grocery bill, your utility bill, could come down a little bit. Now, it's probably not going to be an astronomical difference, but it could be enough of a difference that you notice it. And that extra cash flow could be turned around and put towards their college bill, because some schools will offer payment plans to cover tuition. A lot of times it's called the U-bill. Like your student will go online to pay however they're going to pay. It's called the U-bill a lot of times. And some schools offer payment plans for this U-bill, and so that monthly cash flow can be used to help you pay those installments. That's why I have those there. Student loans. So many students have to take out student loans, myself included. I funded my entire college on student loans. They aren't necessarily a bad thing if you're responsible with them. But a couple tips here. I would first look to federal student loans. In the example, we maxed out the federal unsubsidized student loans to get $27,000. Now, a lot of times, that's not enough. If if certain financial conditions are met, you could also apply for subsidized federal student loans, which means they come from the federal government, like unsubsidized federal student loans, but instead of the interest accruing, from day one while your student is in college, the Department of Education is going to pay that interest while your student is there, while your student is in college. So they essentially come out of college with these loans that have no interest on them. But once they graduate, sometimes, or a lot of times, there's some sort of grace period, but then it'll start to accrue finally once they graduate. So that's a good option if you can apply for those. But if you need to fill the remaining funding gap, you might have to look to private student loans from a bank or a credit union. Me personally, that is how I funded my entire college education, was on private student loans. Was that the best decision? I don't know. But it depends on everyone individually. But private student loans, there's no limit on these like there is with federal, but a lot of times they might not have as favorable terms, rates, payment plans, things like that. So just be cautious. Shop around if you do need to look for federal student loans, private student loans. Do your research, find the best rates, find the best payment plans. But if you are someone who has federal student loans and private student loans, you need to be organized. You need to know what websites to go to, when your payment is due, when your payments are due, what the amount of your payments are, so you're on time, so you don't get hit with a late fee, or you don't forget about a loan and the interest is just snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. You need to stay on top of it if you've got multiple loans out there. And then, of course, I have financial aid and scholarships, which earlier I mentioned a rant coming. Well, here we go. Apply. Continue in a second. But there's no one-size-fits-all here. A lot of families, a lot of students have to use a combination of these things to pay for college because it is so expensive. So, back to my rant. Students, apply, and do it early. Get your FAFSA done early. As soon as it's available, I urge you to get it out of the way do it. Same with scholarships. As soon as you hear about a scholarship opportunity, as soon as that essay window opens, just do it. Okay, I know, if you're a junior or senior in high school, or even if you're applying for scholarships in college, I know there are so many other things you'd rather be doing with your time than writing scholarship essays, but it is so worth it if you can get scholarship money. That's just one less dollar you have to pay back later. I don't care if it's $500 or $10,000. Every penny counts. So apply. Do your research, scour the internet, find as many scholarships as you can, because there are so many scholarships out there that don't get applied for, and that money is just left on the table. So just apply. I promise it's worth it. I know you don't want to hear it right now, but do it. Okay? Parents, going back to you. And this slide is about not sacrificing your retirement. A lot of families don't have, a substantial amount of savings set aside specifically for college, and their biggest savings bucket is their retirement accounts. But I urge you to avoid this if you can. I know you might be tempted, but just avoid this if you can. This is an exciting time for your student. They're going to be living on their own for their first time. They're going to learn a lot about themselves. They're going to mature, hopefully. They are going to figure out what they want to do with their life, hopefully. But this is also an exciting time for you. You can begin to focus on yourself again. You've sacrificed so much over the last 17 or 18 years. And if you're sending your kid off to college, chances are retirement might not be that far away, 5, 10, 15 years. But it's going to get here faster than you think. And it's important to have a retirement plan ready, so you can live the retirement that you want when you want it. You don't want to be stuck working for an extra, 10 or 15 years because you weren't focusing on yourself. And let me give you an example. This is just an example. Imaginary numbers, imaginary growth rate, imaginary contributions. It's just an example to visualize the severity that withdrawing money out of your retirement accounts early for college, how severe it can be. So I'm looking at $50,000 on the right there, taken out for college. In today's day and age, depending on your school, that might be a semester, that might be a year, that might be 2 years. It's not that crazy of a number anymore for college, but look at how far it set you back in your retirement account. $160,000, based with paying taxes, penalties, missed growth opportunities, whatever it is. But that's a substantial amount of money. So again, if you can avoid it, I urge you to avoid it. I know everyone is in their own situation, but that's my 2 cents there. Oh, so taxes and penalties. I did want to say one last thing. The biggest example being, if you're under 59.5, let me go back to this. If you're under 59.5, any distributions from your 401k or IRA, along with any taxes you're going to have to pay, you're also going to get dinged with a 10% penalty. That's an extra 10% that is out of your pocket into the government's pocket. So just be mindful of that. To take that route. It's ultimately up to you what works best for you and your family. There may be some trial and error here. There's going to be a combination of different methods. Remember, I said there's no one size fits all. There's no right answer for how you're going to pay. It also leads me to the point that there's no right answer for who's going to pay. Some parents, if they have the means to do so, will pay the entire college bill for their student so they come out of school, debt-free. They don't have to worry about student loans or whatever. That's great if you can do that, and I hope your student thanks you. Some parents want to split the costs in some way, so their student has skin in the game. Parents think this will be a good way to keep their student focused. So they're taking college seriously. They're not skipping class on Fridays because they were out the night before and they're too hungover. They're staying focused on school. That's why they're there. It is important to have fun, but you're there for school. I remember one of my professors was talking about the price of one missed class. He took, a generic tuition amount and then divided it by the number of classes, and it was like $50 a class or something. I don't know if he was just using that to scare us, but that's pretty believable to me. $50. So if you miss one class, that you can just throw $50 away. So it's just a waste of money if you skip class. And so that's why parents like it. Their kid doesn't want to waste money. They're going to go to class. They're going to stay focused. They're going to learn. Some parents don't have an ability to pay any of the college bill for their student, and it falls completely on the student. That's fine too. Again, student loans. There's also work-study programs on campus that can help, you earn a wage that can go towards your tuition. In campus towns, there are a lot of part-time jobs out there. They might not be the best jobs, but they are jobs. You will earn some money. That can help you pay for school. And a lot of these part-time jobs in these campus towns, they always are hiring college students, so they are used to awkward, weird schedules, and they will be flexible with you. I did this as halfway through my second half of my sophomore year, junior year, senior year. I worked part-time at a credit union as a teller. They always worked with my schedule, and it was great, to have some extra spending money to help me pay rent when I lived off campus, things like that. So there are options out there if it falls completely on the student. With that being said, thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Got Matt and I's beautiful mugshot here. I do want to note that Matt did write a book, Empty Nest Full of Pockets, and as a member of the Prairie Fire College program, you do get a free copy. Yeah, it is a good read, I promise. It's about, him giving funny stories, good tips, what they did, what they learned. Him and his wife, Lisa, sending 4 kids through college around the same time. They're only a couple years apart, so you can imagine the stress they had on themselves for putting 4 kids through college around the same time. I promised it's a good read. He did make me read it before he hired me, but it is a good read. So definitely check it out. But without further ado, that's going to be a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to shoot them our way, and we will see you next time.